Welcome to the Northeast Florida Development Diaries, the place where we share the stories shaping the future of our region. This series is brought to you by the Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation, a partnership committed to strengthening our communities, attracting investment, and expanding opportunity across Northeast Florida. I'm Amber Shepard, the Strategic Alliances Business Partner for Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation, and your host. Each episode, we sit down with investor members, state leaders, and innovators who are driving growth, not just in boardrooms, but in neighborhoods, schools, and local businesses across our counties. These conversations shine a light on the people and programs moving our region forward and the impact their work has on our communities. This is where insight meets action. This is the Development Diaries. Today, we're joined by Bob Milner Jr., City Commissioner for the City of Stark and a lifelong resident of Bradford County. A native Floridian, Bob brings decades of public service experience to his role, grounded in a career spanning more than 35 years in criminal justice. He is a graduate of Bradford High School, Lake City Community College, and the University of Central Florida, where he earned a BA in criminal justice and public administration. And he is also a graduate of the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. Bob retired after serving 16 years as the elected sheriff of Bradford County and later continued his service as city manager for the city of Stark and chairman of the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council and served as a founding director for the NEF EDC. Beyond his professional roles, Bob has remained deeply engaged in the community through volunteer service with his church, Kiwanis, the Bradford Food Pantry, the Bradford County Fair, Meridian Behavioral Health, and Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation. He and his wife Carol have two grown children, four grandchildren, and they enjoy spending time together riding their Harley Davidson motorcycle. Commissioner Milner, thank you for joining us. Let's start with your journey in public service and what continues to inspire your commitment to Bradford County today.
Well, thank you, Amber, and good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the interview. I've lived in Bradford County, I think, as you said, about over 50 years now, having come from Tallahassee. And I absolutely love the rural environment, if you will, that still exists in North Florida. But also, I think that there is just incredible opportunities awaiting smaller rural areas like Bradford, Union, and Clay in terms of economic development. It's coming all around us from north, south, east, and west, and we are definitely going to be impacted. Um, I entered the field, believe it or not, I'm one of those few people who went to college and knew exactly what he wanted to do. I majored in criminal justice and used every one of those hours. I think I only had 4 hours extra when I graduated with a bachelor's degree for the purpose of going into criminal justice. Worked in the prison system for 10 years with the Department of Corrections, worked some municipal police departments, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and then eventually did have the pleasure of serving for 16 years as sheriff. So all of that has given me a pretty good grasp of the lifestyle, the culture, the desires of people living in rural Northeast Florida that NEFDC serves. And so I'm just glad to be a part of it. And thanks for the interview.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. What would you say that you love most about this region and the opportunities here?
You know, I travel a good bit still in my semi-retirement, based on some participation in the organizations you just mentioned and then some. And I have quite a good opportunity to visit larger cities, particularly those hosting conventions and conferences and things, and then come back home through Union, Bradford, Columbia, Madison, all of the North Florida counties. I love here in Bradford and surrounding counties, we have low crime, low taxes, and predominantly low traffic, even with the bypass that was built around Stark about 5 or 6 years ago. So I enjoy the lifestyle for a little while in the larger counties, but I just love the much smaller lifestyle here in terms of traffic, taxes, and the population is easy to get around. So we're really surrounded by great things, great hospitals in Gainesville and Jacksonville and Orange Park. We're only 30, 45 minutes away from any of those kinds of things people desire or need, but yet we get to live in a much slower lifestyle where people really know each other and get to support each other.
When you think about the growth happening around North Florida and the community, what excites you the most?
I think what excites me is literally the opportunity that we have to grow smartly. And I realize that's an overused term for the last 20 years or so. Everybody wants to grow, but they want to grow in a smart fashion. But to me, that simply means we have reasonable regulations that cities and counties are allowed to implement under Florida statutes, but that they incentivize and encourage businesses to relocate here or to start a new business here because of some of the things I mentioned, the low taxes, the cost of land is not near what it is in many of the surrounding larger counties, metro counties in particular. And I know from my experience with NEF EDC, as well as the former organization, the Bradford County Development Authority, the Chamber of Commerce, and others, that there are people absolutely looking. And I think as the Alliance business partner, you and your company have done a great job getting people to look at what are the advantages of being in a rural county, but adjacent to metro counties. And I think one of the biggest things is people want to work. People in Bradford, Union, and Southern Clay, they're not lazy. They are looking for jobs and employment that can keep them and their children and grandchildren here and not have to move somewhere else and relocate just for the purpose of trying to gain gainful employment. So it excites me that I absolutely believe in the next few years, many companies not will not only be looking, but after several swings of the bat, the Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation, working with your partners, will be able to track some of these good companies that bring good jobs to these counties.
My personal background is in workforce development. I actually worked for 13 years in for-profit technical education, helping graduates to secure employment. And when I went back and looked over the math on the impact, the financial impact that that has on the region, and in my role being responsible for 150 graduates a year, supported approximately $76 million of income coming in to families. And then through the aggregate of 13
Mhm.
years of doing that, close to $1 billion. So I can appreciate, number one, the trajectory change for students that that new industry can have. I recognize that, high school students, they look around in their community and they aspire to have good, solid careers, but it's typically in industries that they're familiar with, right? So we see a lot
Mhm.
of students who want to be nurses and doctors and lawyers and dentists and veterinarians or, ag tech. And that's all noble career opportunities. But what I love about what we do is inviting new innovation to the community and really telling those potential business leaders that are coming here that we want them to immerse themselves in our community. We want them to build relationships with the school district so that we can build high school workforce certification training programs that will support their entry level pipeline. And then further, working with colleges like North Florida Technical College in Santa
Mhm.
Fe, who also has a matriculation agreement with the University of Florida to create higher level workforce certification
Mhm.
training programs. So that way, for an organization that's coming here, if they're looking at 100 employees, we can help build that pipeline for them. And that's something that's super exciting to me. So I love that we can help potentially change their trajectory of, the future legacy of students for generations. There's no limit to that possibility. And we've worked really diligently to bring executive tours to the community. So since our last annual meeting, I believe we've brought into the community 4 executive tours to date. And it's only February of 26,
Mhm.
and we actually have 2 more executive tours that are interested in coming to the community within the next month or so. So very exciting.
Mhm.
I love to have the opportunity to bring these leaders to the community because, when you go through the site selector process, I have a huge appreciation for site selectors. They're reaching out globally, but they also have to send out their request for proposal to virtually every community in the nation. And it's really hard to stand out against the crowd when it's such a broad request. And so the work that we have done at the EDC is really tailoring a go-to-market strategy specifically for the community and marketing what is great about us directly to potential businesses. And I think from my perspective, since being on the board starting in 2023, we have had more site visits from this methodology than everything else combined from site selectors and
Yeah,
the state. So it's exciting, and to your point, at some point, the law of averages, one of them is going to land and it's going to be really, really good. So,
I
um,
agree.
Commissioner Milner, how did you first get connected with Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation?
Well, as I stated, I was a member of basically the forerunner, if you will, Bradford County Development Authority for 15 years or so, appointed by different governors. But when the legislature and the governor decided to do away with all what was called special districts, even though we didn't have taxing authority, we were a special district. And that was sunsetted in, I believe, June 30th of 23. We, the existing board at the time, made a conscious decision that we certainly wanted to keep up the economic development efforts that we were doing. We were able to work with Bradford County because all remaining funds from a special district would automatically go to the county if they're required by law to disband as we were. And Bradford County commissioners were very facilitative and agreeable as to the needs for economic development, which, quite frankly, through no fault of their own or the city of Stark's, no one was prepared to do. We simply did not have the professional staff and the capabilities or experience. So the county held those funds in abeyance long enough for us to step up and set up Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation. So I was a charter member of that, proud of that for the first couple of years, and then rolled off because I elected to go back on the Stark City Commission. And as an elected official, I couldn't be on the board. But I also felt it was time for some new people to be on the board. And I am excited about the quality of people that NEF currently has, good leadership, and then working with you as a business alliance partner, Amber. And so that my role was just kind of moved from one organization to another with the same goals. But now that we have the staff, you working with the members of that board, I agree with your earlier comments. I think we're close. We're on the cusp of having at least a few site selectors, and it only takes one good one that finally decides that this area of Bradford or Union, South Clay would be a wonderful place to set up. And of course, we have the big things like the data centers and the Amazon centers and things like that that have a lot of jobs, but those are very sporadic and very targeted, obviously, where they put those. And I think the things that we and you have been working toward, maybe somewhat smaller businesses than that, but nonetheless, one that would employ a number of people. And I just think I truly think we're on the cusp in the next couple of years of landing one or more excellent employer type businesses. And we have a workforce that's ready, as you mentioned, between North Florida Technical College and Santa Fe College and the Bradford High School District system working together in conjunction with other partners. I think we have people who want to learn a skill. In the past, we had National Guard, still do, Camp Blanning. We had a company like Comores. We had some large timber companies and a couple of steel mills and things, but not unlike things in the Northeast that were mill towns, if you will, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And when those mills shut down, and they inevitably do for whatever reason, the town can kind of become a ghost town. We didn't want to see that happen. And we have been fortunate to avoid it, even with some of the losses we've had with some of our industry leaders going out of business or moving overseas or whatever. So we've got a workforce that's ready to work, ready to be trained for whatever the newest uh, job opportunities are. And of course, one of the skill sets that's most needed and will be so in the next 30 years in Florida is nursing, skilled nursing, as so many of us are older and retired or have relocated to Florida. So again, the point you mentioned, the collaboration with Northeast, with a technical college, I'm sorry, and Santa Fe is just one of many. But a lot of these technical colleges, with help from industries and partnerships, they can spin around pretty quickly and start up a program, something dealing with aviation, or advanced welding techniques that may not have existed prior, especially with the advent of AI and everything, computerization and in the manufacturing of things. I think we've got a workforce ready to go to work and just looking for the training opportunities and which companies are willing to invest a little bit, knowing that over the next few years, they will definitely reap their return on investment by being in Northeast Florida.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. From your perspective, how do you see Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation helping create opportunities or visibility for businesses that are already here?
To be quite frank, we did not have an organization uh, prior to the advent of Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation to really work with existing businesses or those looking, the site selectors looking to relocate. So I have already seen in the 3 years or so of existence of NEFEDC working with you as a business alliance partner, certainly a lot of advantages in terms of marketing and expertise that, again, previously, quite frankly, just did not exist. And now then, as some of the things we've mentioned and some of the things you mentioned of site selectors who we know have looked, and some of the current business that weren't deciding, maybe didn't make up their mind yet if they wanted to expand a business for different reasons, not so much in things that were local, but the economy overall, changes in Congress and federal regulations and all the things that they have to look at. But I think we're starting to see a little bit smoother platform as things settle down, and the Federal Reserve has made several drops in the cost of the borrowing the money, which affects businesses. So I just think there's several outside factors that are going to make it much smoother for local employers who have been thinking for a little while. I need to expand. I can expand, but is it the right time? I think now then they're able to look at some of these markers and things that have happened largely because of the help that NEFDC is able to give and say, this is a time to expand. So I think we will see expansion of some local businesses as well as site selectors coming in from the outside.
I certainly hope so. And if there's, groups out there that are interested in expanding and are considering those options, I'd love to be a strategic partner with them and talk through some of those things. And a lot of the work that we do is very complementary. We don't necessarily have to charge for every minute that we spend providing guidance to businesses. Now, if they need some, operational support or something a little bit deeper than that high level strategic support, then we do have some capability to provide
Mhm.
some consulting services. So I think that's a really good option for business leaders that they can explore the potential of expansion without committing to hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary
Mhm.
right off the bat. So I think that's a really good method of helping to grow without having to make such a huge commitment initially. So
Mhm.
for business owners who might be considering joining our EDC, what would you tell them that would encourage them to do so?
Oh, I think that anybody who is interested, which should be everybody, but those particularly interested in seeing overall economic development, and I'm one of those people that fortunately I have a retirement. Uh, to the glory of God, I don't have to work, but I enjoy this community in response to as you asked me earlier. And I think for those of us, and I believe it's a lot of people in the rural areas that want to see businesses be able to establish new businesses, expand existing businesses, and give our young folks a place to young adults to be trained, a skill set. They can stay locally within a county or two without having to move into one of the metro areas. And I believe all of the things that we've talked about collectively are going to allow that to happen. And I'm excited about the possibilities. But I would encourage not just businesses, but just individuals like me who right now might not own a business, but still are involved in local government or many of the worthwhile philanthropic or uh, fraternal organizations locally in Bradford Union and Clay. It's worth being an investing member of Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation just to see what you're being a small part of, but an important part of ensuring that we have the capabilities of doing what you and I have talked about, finding those site selectors who, as you pointed out, have got a whole country or more to look at, yeah, internationally as well. Why would they want to pick Bradford County? And I think the more we can invest in the work that Economic Development Corporation is doing, we got a greater chance of showing those site selectors and others who may be looking of exactly what we do have in Northeast Florida. It can be a whole lot less expensive, a whole lot easier in terms of regulations to be able to establish a business or to grow an existing business. So, in order to do that, NEFEDC has to be able to do their work in conjunction with you as a alliance business partner. And that's the reason people need to invest.
Very well said. So I know the city of Stark has some pretty exciting projects on the horizon in terms of
Mhm.
economic development. Can you share some details on that with our audience?
Sure. And a lot of the times, infrastructure in a municipality is a rather boring subject. When you talk about water, wastewater, gas, electric, sewer, stormwater runoff, these are just some of the things, but critical things to municipalities and counties, as well as other forms of government. But we have been dealing for many years, like most small municipalities throughout the United States, and particularly in some areas of the South, with 50 and 60-year-old infrastructure in terms of particularly water and sewer, but also gas, and a lack of resiliency in our electric, not just the city of Stark, but municipalities. And so, what we've seen in the last few years, the commission, even prior to my getting on there, so let me be very clear, I'm not taking credit for this. It's a continuing effort by our commission and city manager and our top personnel that we have in charge of infrastructure and director of operations. We have plans in place and we're in process of executing and have for several years to replace our infrastructure, particularly water and sewer, but also electric. We've been hardening, as the term is utilized, our electrical system for years now because of the storms, so many storms that we have. Not necessarily direct hits by hurricanes, but still strong storms and winds. And so we've got to build in that resiliency to the greatest extent possible where power losses are rare. And if we do experience them, that they're short term in duration. And we've been able to do that. For example, the city of Stark enjoys every year the third or fourth lowest times for getting back on power when it's been lost out of all the municipalities, 300 and something in the state. We rank very high on our restoration efforts. And I'm proud of that. We have a small 7, 8 man crew on the line crew, but the supervisors are experienced and very smart. And we've brought in from GRU, Gainesville Regional Utilities, and others working with them. We've just finished the completion of about a $25 million solid wastewater treatment plant to replace a 60-year-old plant. And so the water, after it's been treated by the sewer and the reclamation water, is so clean, literally, it can be used on any land application, such as golf courses, right of ways, on government right of ways, and things like that. And we're proud of that so that we're not dumping any contaminants into Alligator Creek or other places. And we have capacity to add for new businesses to come in. And we are now expanding that by working with the Bradford County Commission, give them credit. They joined us with a $4 million contribution of some of the leftover funds they had from previous hurricanes and administrations. And that's enabling us to expand our water and sewer in particular outside the bounds of what was the normal municipalities to the bypass that has been built around Stark 5 or 6 years ago. And there's much interest in a couple of large areas immediately adjacent to the current city limits, which we will be supplying that water and sewer. So hardening, building resiliency in our stormwater runoff so we don't have floods. And if we do, it's short duration. Same thing with our power supply. And then ensuring that we have adequate water pressure. We just received a $23 million grant from the government as a result of hurricanes Milton and Helene a couple of years ago. And we were able to adequately document the damages and how we needed to rebuild. And so that $23 million grant is the largest grant ever received by the city of Stark or Bradford County of any kind. That will allow us to build a new water plant, loop the water system some, and supply much bigger lines and water pressure, not only to our current customers, but again, preparation as economic development occurs, that these new businesses can come in knowing they have adequate fire protection, suppression systems, and so forth. So we're excited about what the city's been able to do with our infrastructure.
I am too. I'm really looking forward to the completion of that expansion project to the alternate truck route. So, when I am looking at the area, there's about 185 acres that are available, greenfield development. They've never been
Mm-hmm.
developed before. And now we're going to have water and sewer. We have electricity out there already. And so, what I love about this alternate truck route is it creates this exit system. So it's now commercial highway interchange out there in some of the parcels.
Mm-hmm.
And a really great space for some high density residential, but also I think about hospitality, including lodging and restaurants. And so, when I look at the community, we're very nicely nestled between I-75 to the west, going that goes north and south, and then we have I-10 going
Mm-hmm.
east and west to the north of us, and I-95 to the east of us going north and south also. And then we have US 301 that runs straight through the county, used to go straight through the city of Stark, but now we've got that alternate truck route. Well, when I look at US 301, all the way to the Georgia border, because that goes far up north, but all the way to the Georgia border, there is no nice sit down restaurants or nice lodging from Georgia all the way down pretty much to Ocala. There's one hotel in Waldo,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the challenge for them is there's not a lot of restaurants around them. And so,
Right.
our spot, our exit is really prime for development. We're literally at that exit 10 minutes away from the downtown district of Stark, where it's a nice vintage walkable district with lovely restaurants and cafes and opportunity there. But then I see the opportunity out at that truck route to create, some of those hotels like Marriott and
Mhm.
Hilton. We need executive lodging. We're having a definite increase in request for executive lodging with the activities going on out at our general aviation airport, the Keystone Heights Airport, literally 10 minutes away for executive travel. And then further, some nice restaurants. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard, we need a steak restaurant. We need a nice steak
Mhm.
restaurant. And so,
Right.
for anybody who's listening, if you are a land developer and in the hospitality, hotel, restaurant, arena, we would love for you to consider this area. My understanding is that water and sewer should be extended to that area at the first part of 2027. So we're less
That's
than like a
right.
year away.
Roughly,
And that
yes.
everything's gone through permitting and engineering, and
Hmm.
now we're about to go out to RFP to bid out for the best contractor to do the work. And so, from there, it'll be very quick work, and I'm very excited about that. But when you think about the next 5 years, what do you hope to see for the community and the region as a whole?
I think just what we've been talking about, Amber, and what you mentioned specifically, I think lodging and restaurants and other small supporting businesses in and around the bypass, not necessarily on the bypass. I can tell you, even way back, I say 8 years ago when I was city manager, but even today, as I sit as a city commissioner, we have absolute interest regularly at areas along US 301 on either side of Stark, north and south, within the city limits or just outside, as well as where you mentioned the couple of exits, State Road 16 in particular, where the first emphasis is being placed because of the water and sewer in the previous agreement I mentioned with the Bradford County Commission. That will be the first ones outside of the corporate city limits to receive the water and sewer. But also on the south end, toward what a lot of people refer to the Walmart area because of the size of it. But there's other businesses down there too, of course, and there's residences down there. But on both ends, we have industries, lodging and restaurants uh, regularly asking the city about permits, regulations, infrastructure, zoning, all of the matters that they have to be concerned with before they can ever thinking about getting buying the land or leasing or getting permits. The interest is high. And the raceway, for example, south of Stark, they just couldn't wait. They wanted the water and sewer, but they finally went with their own package plant. And if you've been by there, uh, 20 hours a day, that place is packed as
It
a
is.
travel center. I know we used to call them truck stops, but in theory, this is just a big travel center that's primarily utilized by non-commercial vehicles, but there are a lot of trucks that fill up there as well. That is a lot of gas and diesel tax that Bradford County is getting from that one facility. And of course, Murray Ford, Dale Murray Superstores has expanded their line out there tremendously with their new quick oil change and the other things they've got there. And we've got businesses wanting to relocate out in that area that are inquiring when can we get the water and sewer out there. So there's no doubt in my mind that we will have businesses both outside and inside, because I can tell you that some of the lodging ones, such as the Holiday Inn Express, that's already built, beautiful, does a lot of great business on 301. They don't need to be on the bypass. You and I travel a lot. We know that we're not looking to say, is it right at the interstate? It's whatever brand and the reason that we choose to stay at that particular hotel or lodging. It could be a mile off of the bypass and they don't care.
Right.
And what I mean by that is the good thing is the lodgings and restaurants that are inquiring regularly from us at the city, and I can't even speak to what they may be inquiring from the county's zoning folks. They're just looking at all the other things. What is the population? What is the average number of vehicles driving through per day, et cetera? All of the markers that they have to utilize in doing their due diligence and determining where they're going to be. So the good news is we've got people looking both along current US 301 or 100 as well as the bypass that you've mentioned several times. So, and I agree with you. Everybody says we need a good steakhouse. I think we'll get one. We've got excellent barbecue, Thai, Italian, and others here in Stark that people drive from Keystone, Lake Butler, even Gainesville, because they thoroughly enjoy our little downtown and some of the boutique type restaurants that serve excellent food and good service. But we certainly would like to see also a steakhouse and some other venues come in.
I was reviewing over DOT traffic counts the other day, and in 2024, so 2 years ago, it was reported that there was about 30,500 vehicles that are on that alternate truck route path
Daily.
every day, every day.
Hmm.
And my understanding is about 25% of those are commercial vehicles. Would you say that, or do you think it's a little
I
more?
believe the last time that I looked at the DOT figures, that sounds about right, Amber. About a quarter of them.
And, I mean, that was 2 years ago. So when we consider that there's probably some exponential growth over the last 2 years and activity, I think that it's very well positioned to receive, some quality development and be successful, right? Because that ultimately that's really what's important. We want to be the place where businesses come to thrive and give them the greatest opportunity for success. And I think, that's probably one of the things that separates us from everybody else. I really feel like we really work to build the ecosystem and build the
Hmm.
community. It's not very common when there's an executive tour for the EDCs to bring in the community business leaders. But that's one of the things that I've really, as long as the business leader is okay with it, I try to hold an executive meet and greet for business leaders in the community and even municipal leaders, elected representatives, appointed representatives come and learn about the project because I recognize that when these business leaders are launching a new location, granted, some of them are, DOW contractors that, are very internal and don't want a whole lot of recognition, but for the most
Hmm.
part, most businesses have an external consumer and they want to get the word out and they want to build their market presence in the new location. And so I find that by getting people involved early in the conversation, that brings a lot of community support and people are excited about it. I've been told by more than one executive that our executive site visits are the best that they have ever experienced, hands down.
Good.
I
I
think that's
believe that.
astounding, and I think, when I had first started doing economic development, I think there was some discouragement because of that national RFP process. We just weren't standing out. And so people
Mhm.
kind of felt like, man, we just don't measure up. But, to be honest, that's really not the truth. Like, we have a lot of great things here in Bradford County, in the city of Stark. I think about, all of the recreational activity development that we've been working towards. We've got a new rec director who's bringing in
Mhm.
regional ball games. We've got a wonderful splash pad for families to utilize. We've got a fabulous fair, that's going on right now, by the way.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of opportunity. Plus, every holiday, there's something seasonal going down in the downtown district to celebrate. So when I think about businesses relocating here, it's not just about business opportunity, but also quality of life. And I think that businesses who choose to relocate here, there's something for everybody. To your point, you mentioned there's Gainesville and Jacksonville. So if you like the nighttime city life, you've got that option. But if you're an ecotourism person and you like rivers, lakes, and streams and swimming with the manatees, you can do that here. So I think there's a lot of opportunity and a great offering for anybody who would like to consider the free business state of Florida.
Mhm. Well, I think the Rails to Trails, as you know, is making great progress thanks to funding by the legislature. And so right now it runs into southern Bradford County where it's paved all the way from the previous railroad tracks. And now then you can see where they have cleared the land, crossing US 301. The legislature has appropriated and DOT has it within their plan to build the overpass just north of Hampton on US 301 for pedestrians and non-motorized vehicles to be able to take that rails to trails all the way across North Florida. And that is a super, super ecosystem draw. I would like to see, a lot of us would like to see Alligator Creek and Rowell Lake in those areas that are already joined by water, but there's some inhibitors that don't not currently allow people to like put in a canoe, up on the north side and come all the way down. But it's very, very doable. So we could start out around the Comores property and the golf course on the eastern edge of Bradford County and be able to kayak or canoe all the way down, stop and do a get out at Stark at one of our restaurants you mentioned, and then get back and finish going all the way down to Lake Rowell and Crosby Lake, Sampson Lake, beautiful fishing lakes. And that would just be a marvelous day for people who like to be outside. We have wonderful weather almost year round. So there's a lot of ecotourism things. I think that along with some of the farms that are like right now, you can do you pick strawberries, and that's not possible in most places today. Kids can get out right in the farm, right where the berries and other fruits and vegetables are grown, and learn to pick them and realize they don't come from a grocery store. They come from right here that farmers had to grow them. So those are some of the other opportunities that might not involve big businesses, but that's what people are looking for. Get out of the big cities, come out for somewhere that's not a lot of traffic, good places to eat, and yet they can ride their bikes or kayak or canoe. And that's where we're going in the next few years. And that excites me as well as others.
I think that's going to be great. I think Florida has probably one of the highest levels of outdoor adventurers
Hmm.
um, compared to every other state. And to your point, like we have fabulous weather, fabulous outdoor weather for 95% of the year. I think, we have 2 weeks where it freezes in our area. And, for the most part, I would say, like, even in terms, I think I've heard some people express concerns about hurricanes and things of that nature. But I really consider our area pretty well insulated from a lot of significant damage. Now, granted, when you have those once in a century storms, those things do happen, but our crews are there to really help get things fixed quickly and restored and back in line and in order as quickly as possible. And so there's really, I literally about 95% of the year is available to go and just do things. And that creates a beautiful community where people are spending time with their families. They're getting off the electronics. They're getting back to real community. We talk about pre-COVID
Hmm.
and during COVID and then post-COVID. And I think post-COVID communities, we adapted during COVID to being alone. And Florida wasn't alone for very long because we just can't handle it because we have to be outside. Um, but I think, as a whole, society has adapted to being on the electronics. But what we offer is an opportunity to break away from that norm. And, we have
Hmm.
to do it for work and for school, and that's great. And it prepares us for a global marketplace, but it doesn't have to consume us. We're supposed to consume it, right?
Yes, correct.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to share about the EDC or the community?
Well, I think we've pretty much covered it all. But again, I would just encourage uh, those within the local area who may not have looked into it for various reasons, look into Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation and how you all are partnering with, like I said, the Chamber of Commerce, the school board, the district. It's going to take all of us. It really does take a village to really move this forward, but we have the capabilities, the desire, and the real heart for people, and that's important. I think the culture here is people look out for each other in a good way and not in an old clannish way, but people who you don't even know. You reach out and get to know your neighbor, and I think that investing in NEF EDC and the work that you all are doing, since I'm no longer on the board, I have to say they or you, but still working with them as an investor is just extremely important because we've never had the expertise to be able to reach out and to host the site selectors and do the professional marketing that you all are doing from a collaborative effort. And so I would just really encourage anyone who said, well, I would like to see this or that, get involved. You don't have to be a board member. Attend the meetings if you want, find out what's going on, but support the efforts of our Economic Development Corporation and the collaboration with their partners. And that is what is going to bring to Bradford, Union, and Clay and Northeast Florida in general the kinds of jobs and careers and therefore lifestyles and a place you really want your family to grow up and remain, hopefully not have to leave here. And so I'm glad to be a part of it. And I just encourage everyone who wants to see true economic development and what all the positive results thereof, get involved and support Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation.
I appreciate that, and I concur. We do have our board members the third Wednesday of every month at the community room at Capital City Bank in Stark at 1:15. We do have an open portion that's open to business leaders from typically from 1:15 to 2:15, and then we go into a confidential portion where we discuss more in-depth topics that are not available to the public. But we do encourage business leaders to come, and even individuals, please come and join us for that open portion. Learn about what the Economic Development Group is doing and share your feedback. We'd love to have you involved. So, Commissioner Milner, one final question. If somebody is interested in expanding to Florida and learning more, how can they get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way is my public email is very simply B Milner, BMILNER at City of Stark. And if they'll shoot me an email, I'll be glad to give them a call. And however they want me to communicate with them, and any way that I can facilitate and assist in their gaining enough knowledge to help them with what it is they want to do, I'd love to do it.
Wonderful. Commissioner Milner, thank you for your lifelong service to Bradford County and for continuing to lead and invest in the future of the city of Stark. We appreciate your time, your perspective, and your unwavering commitment to the people and communities you serve. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Northeast Florida Development Diaries. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, like, and share this episode and stay connected as we continue highlighting the leaders and innovators driving growth across our region. We appreciate you and we look forward to having you with us on the next episode.